Welcome back. We have been reading the book Funny Bones, Posada and His Day of the Dead Calaveras. It is written and illustrated by the artist Duncan Tonatua. This is the story of Jose Guadalupe Posada and his funny calaveras. He started in elementary school becoming an artist by copying the prints on the wall and in his books, and his brother thought he did so well that he sent him to art school. His first job when he was out of school was at a print shop, and he found his lifelong love of printing. He became an illustrator for a publisher named Don Antonio. Don Lupe and Don Antonio worked together for more than 20 years. They were always busy, especially every November 1st and 2nd during El Dia de los Muertos. On those days, the city was full of vendors who sold pan de muerto, bread, marigold flowers, alfenques, which are the sugar skulls, and papa picado, which is paper cutouts. People bought these and other items to decorate their ofrendas, or their offerings they made for their loved ones who had died. For the holiday, Don Antonio and other editors published literary calaveras. They were short, rhyming poems that featured a skeleton and made jokes about him or her. People found the poems very funny and bought them on the street from paper boys. A man named Manuel Manila illustrated many of these poems for Don Antonio. Don Lupe also began to illustrate them, and soon he became a master at it. Calavera Love. It was a warm afternoon in the middle of May. Mr. Bones grabbed his hat and went walking that day. When he noticed a beauty on the opposite street, he ran towards her and kneeled at her feet. "You are the prettiest girl I've seen in my life. Please marry me. Please be my wife." "I am sorry, senor, but that cannot be. You're handsome and all, but too skinny for me." During Dia de Muertos, Don Lupe surely visited and watched people going to the cemetery. They weeded and repainted the gravestones of their loved ones. They brought food and told stories about them. Sometimes they hired musicians to play their loved ones' favorite songs. Don Lupe drew some skeletons dancing and partying. Was he saying that El Dia de Muertos is not only a celebration of death, but also a celebration of life, a day when the dead become alive? One day, Don Lupe drew a skeleton wearing a flamboyant hat, La Catrina. The drawing was printed alongside a calavera poem about the type of woman who puts on makeup and fancy clothes and acts as if she's better than everyone else. Can you imagine the woman who inspired that drawing? Perhaps she wore a pretentious outfit and strolled through the park on a Sunday afternoon. She thought highly of herself, but acted and ignored others when they needed help. Was Don Lupe saying that no matter how fancy your clothes are on the outside, on the inside we are all the same, that we are all calaveras? Don Lupe drew calaveras of famous men, but he also drew calaveras of the people around him, like the men who swept the street and the people who worked in the print shop. He even drew a calavera of his friend Don Antonio. Was Don Lupe saying that calaveras are all around us? That we are all calaveras, whether we are rich or poor, or famous or not? Don Lupe died on January 20th, 1913. Many people were familiar with his drawings and his calaveras, but very few people knew the artist who was behind them. It was years after his death that historians and artists such as Jean Charlot and Diego Rivera, began to wonder who had drawn such wonderful drawings. Today, Jose Guadalupe Posada is not called Don Lupe anymore. He is simply called Posada, which is the way he signed his work. His art is celebrated in Mexico, in the United States, and around the world. Some people even dress like Catrinas and parade on the streets during Dia de Muertos, and on that special day, there is always somewhere an altar with an ofrenda to remember the great Don Lupe Posada. What would Posadas Calaveras look like nowadays?